When you create materials, you're going to do so in the Material Manager. That's typically found in the bottom of the standard layout right here. If you can't see this, if you don't have a layout like this, you should do, but if not, you can always get to the standard layout just by pressing that button there in the top right. So here we are in the Material Manager, and we already have, this is where all our materials are going to be stored. We already have one in here, and to create a new one, you can just come here and say create new material, Command N, or my favorite method, which is just double clicking inside of the Material Manager. So we've already discussed that materials are made up of channels, and we'll just give this a bit of color. And what we can do is apply this material to the objects in the scene. So we're going to do a few methods. We've got this drag and drop onto the object in the viewport. We can drag and drop onto the object in the Object Manager. You can also select the material and hold down Command or Control and then drag out a copy onto another material in the Object Manager. Another way, if we remove this material and come over to the Material Manager and just double click onto that material, you can find out which objects they've been assigned to by coming over to the Assignment section here. And now you can also drag in a material like so, and that will create a texture tag on the object. So if we look at the tag, this is all the same material. It's not like we've created 3 separate materials. This is just referencing the same material. So if we make any changes, come back and just change the color, you can see that it's had an effect on all of those materials there. Also, if you delete the material, you will see this and you'll know that a texture is missing, doesn't have its reference anymore. So we could just create a new one like so. And if you have common properties, you can just select all of them. Then we can just drag that material in here, and now it has a reference and it knows what to do. Speaking of knowing what to do, well, when you create and apply a material, it is projected onto the object, and that's what this section here is. The default's UVW mapping, and UVs are just coordinates. That's what they mean in material sense. You can change the different projection type here, and we'll get into this in a later movie, but just to be aware that that's how materials are applied to objects. So you saw that like an object or something like that, we can disable it. You can't just disable a texture if you don't want to see it on there anymore. And a trick I use if I just want to turn off a texture temporarily, but I don't want to delete it from the object and then reapply it, is just to add a selection that doesn't mean anything, like a full stop or period. And I can just put that in here, and now the texture doesn't know what that selection is, so it just turns itself off. So let's look at selections now in a different example. Here we have some Mo text, and this is the same principle as if you're using an extrude object as well, because we've created caps, and what that does is it creates some special tags on the object. Now, if we come over to our Material Manager here and just grab this red material, we can drag it and drop it onto the word next, and it will colorize the whole of the object. Now let's create a new material. I'm just going to command and drag on that red material, and you can see the arrow change. I'm just going to drop it there and make a copy, and we'll just call this orange. Double click to edit it, and we'll just give it a sort of orange color. And now we can drop that onto the word next. Now this is an important thing to know, because Cinema 4D, as we know, works with hierarchies throughout, and it's the same with tags. And you can see the tags are evaluated in this order, so left to right, and if the rightmost one takes precedence. So this tag is currently blocking out the color of this red texture. So to get on track and what we were talking about with selections, we can now choose to use one of the special selection tags that are created when you have caps on an object. So we can look at maybe the edge here, which is called the rounding. So if I want to do it on the front, I can type R1, and the material will just be applied to the rounding here, and R2 would be the back. And so we can make another material. Just going to make this a white color. And I'll drop that on, and you can see we can have the same thing. It's just going to colorize the whole object because it is that order of operation. So now we can choose to colorize the caps. So that would be C1. And now we've got 3 different materials on the same object, colorizing different selections of it. Let's move to a different example of selections because we can have polygon selections as well. So we've got this screen here, and if I'm in polygon mode now, if I get my live selection tool and just say we want to have a different material for this screen. So I've selected that polygon, and we can do this in a number of ways. I could just drag a material onto the selection, and the material tag is created, and a polygon selection is created as well. And also that polygon selection is moved into the selection field. So that's the fast way. Another way, you can then choose select, set selection, and we now have that polygon selection. Then we could drag on our material and then drag in the selection into the field. So now we've looked at creating and applying materials to selections. Let's just come over to our last example here, and you can see we have this logo and we have a material applied to the whole of the logo. So if you drop a material onto the top of the hierarchy, it's going to just colorize everything through here. So it's going to affect everything in this list unless we have another material applied. So let's just create a new material and we'll drop it on these circles, for example. And so now the top material is going to just look at anything that doesn't have material on it already and apply it. And if it finds a material, it's going to stop, and this one will be applied instead. So now you know how to create and apply materials to objects and selections. Take this logo, make some materials, have some fun with it, and use all the techniques we've just learned.